Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to a new edition of Live from Saturn. Today we're going to be going over a book called Interview with a Vampire. I am Frank Perrine.
Cody Decker.
Duncan Gale. All right, so Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. So got a little bit of background information about the author, Anne Rice. She was born Howard Allen Francis O'Brien. But she's not trans. But yes, her legal name is Howard.
Howard, not Allen.
Howard Allen Francis O'Brien. She was born with that name in 1941 in New Orleans. Not surprisingly. The story is that her mother thought that giving her a man's name would give her an advantage. So that's why her name was Howard.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. But she just sort of chose the name Anne when she was in school, and because that was easier for people. So she was born in New Orleans, raised there. She was raised Catholic. Again, not that surprising if you've read this book. She went to San Francisco State University and got a BA in political science, MA in creative writing. While she was pursuing her degrees, she actually had a daughter named Michelle who was diagnosed with leukemia and died at the age of 5, sadly. And again, that relates to
that's interesting.
Some plot elements here in Interview with the Vampire. Shortly after her daughter's death, that was when she turned a short story she had written into this novel, Interview with the Vampire, which was the first book that she published. It took her 3 more years for that to eventually be published in 1976. Was not immediately successful, but Anne Rice did eventually write more novels that came to be part of this overall series called the Vampire Chronicles, and it steadily became more and more successful. It has a big following, especially with the LGBTQ community. A lot of people see the sort of metaphor of vampires, the sort of social isolation there.
I saw they were saying it has undertones. I don't think there's undertones.
Those tones are pretty right up on the surface.
But it all makes sense, though. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the whole thing. It all makes sense.
Yeah.
It really does. So I totally understand that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even think about that until you just said it right now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you think back to, my experience with this stuff before was just remembering having seen the trailers for the movie that came out back in the early 90s, and that was pretty.
And the movie had some undertones.
I never saw the movie before. I'm not a vampire. I'm a werewolf guy. Through and through. And I never saw. I watched the movie after the book. I'm like, oh, that's not how you're supposed to do these things.
Right.
You really should watch the movie and then.
Yeah.
Because I'm watching the movie like, wow, they really just didn't do anything.
Well, I mean, could you? There's the whole. Well, anyway.
Oh yeah, I saw that Brad Pitt didn't like what happened because he really liked his character and was basically all of his subtleties weren't in there.
Yeah,
and it is like, oh yeah, all of his character moments are kind of just gone.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. I mean, I still have never actually seen the movie, but I definitely remember when it came out. Yeah, I think I was in like middle school at the time. I mean, that movie was huge, but me as a 13-year-old boy who was heterosexual and did not want anybody to question that, I could not take any interest in that movie.
Yeah, but it was weird because the thing about the movie was weird because they didn't even really touch on so much as the book does. So I didn't even know the book exist when I saw the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So listening to the book now, looking at it now, looking at the research you've done,
right?
Yeah, it takes you into a different view of it.
Yeah,
but the movie didn't even really cover any of the stuff in the book, the underground stuff. It was just a movie.
Yeah, no. When they say it has undertones, in the book they're very overt, but in the movie, I'm like, I mean, because their mouths kind of got close to each other. The book goes so far into it, and when you watch the movie, it's like, oh, I guess you could say that's undertones.
Yes.
Because the book is like, I don't think it's a metaphor. That's just what's happening.
Well, yeah. I mean, because in the end, when we get into it.
Sure. Yeah. Let me just go over a couple more things. Yeah, there's this.
Now, to give everyone a visual, Duncan has this huge. I
have this huge
notes.
He's our pad of notes.
Yes.
Cartographer.
Yeah.
Wait, what do you call the?
I don't know. I thought it was
stenographer.
I thought I was in a law firm or something right now.
Yeah. So, like, in terms of like the overall kind of like critical reception of Rice's works, there's a quote here from the New York Times book reviewer Michiko Kakutani, which I think is amusing. She says, Anne Rice has what might best be described as a gothic imagination crossed with a campy taste for the decadent and the bizarre. And, I think that kind of sums things up well.
I saw that this is like what sparked off the hot goth vampire era.
Mm-hmm.
I see that.
Right.
And like I remember, because like I'm coming from like I know about like the stuff that's inspired by this, and so when the guy's like, I only wear black, I'm like, that sounds like a joke to me, because I'm like, that's like what you would say in a vampire movie making fun of it, but like this is what created that thing. Where the guy's like, no, I'm all black. I need a black robe. I need black outfits. That's what I do.
And so much of it that we're talking about, the influence, I mean, has taken place way after the book was written.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I mean,
definitely.
Way. I mean, the 70s, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The book was in the 70s. The movie was in the 90s, but I mean, it was still.
Oh, the book was in the 70s.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's so out of place.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But and I mean, another thing that we'll definitely get into is, probably the way that Catholicism is treated in the book. Anne Rice herself had a very interesting relationship with Catholicism. She was raised that, but then sort of moved away from it in her early adulthood. But then in the late 90s, she sort of went back to Catholicism. She actually ended up writing a couple of historical novels about Jesus, so she kind of really got into it. But then in about 2010, she again was sort of disenchanted with sort of organized Catholicism, and so she decided to I know. I mean, there's really no reason that you should be, but for some reason, the official 2,000-year-old institution that still resembles its medieval incarnations in many ways, was just as a 20th, 21st century woman, she just wasn't down with it.
Not her cup of tea.
Yeah, not her cup of tea. So she said that she remained dedicated to Christ, but she could no longer consider herself to be a Christian in 2010.
When technically she is.
Right.
Well, her problem is the organization,
religion.
not the...
Yes, the religion, yes.
Right.
I wonder if it had to do with her daughter and stuff.
I don't see how that could affect anyone.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Who knows? But anyway, to just kind of wrap up the biographical stuff. So towards the latter part of her life, Anne Rice actually settled in Rancho Mirage,
really?
Not too far away from where we are broadcasting right now.
That kind of sounds like Rancho Cucamonga.
Yeah. And
I heard that town sucks.
Well, whether it sucks or not, it definitely costs a lot more, I think, than where we are right now. But and it was there that she passed away just this past December at the age of 80. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's just...
Or did she?
Well, unless she was visited by a pale, beautiful stranger that, showed her other ways, but...
I also realized, this is like going through like classics, it's always like, that's what things were based off of. Like in Skyrim, there's a child vampire named Babette. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was a unique. Okay, it was a reference to this. It wasn't. Okay.
And of course, the child in Interview with the Vampire is 5 years old, which is kind of an influence to her child.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, in the movie they can't have the person that young.
Yeah. They
which is less distribung.
Because it gets pretty weird.
They aged up the character in the movie, right?
And
she's played by Kirsten Dunst, right?
Yeah.
I think it was one of her first
Kirsten Dunst,
roles. Yeah.
It's probably her best role.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so let's get into Interview with the Vampire itself now. This book, begins in New Orleans with, the main character, Louis, or Louis, I guess would be the French pronunciation.
And the narrator, it was like really good for it's a classic vampire thing, but he does not do a New Orleans accent at all. So
yeah, not at all.
So and in the movie they don't have New Orleans accents either, and I really want to see New Orleans vampires.
It's too bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's understandable.
I mean,
with the vampire aspect of it, you live hundreds of years. He's been all over the place.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I like how Highlander handled immortality accents.
I don't know how Highlander.
It's like Sean Connery. His character was technically Egyptian, but he's been in Scotland so long that
he's got an accent.
They're just like, your accent sounds. He's like, where's it from? He's like, oh, it's from lots of places. So it doesn't sound like any one accent.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a cool way of handling it.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have cut the book way short because they cut half the sentence in half. They don't even say the end of the sentence.
That's right.
When they're talking about gators. Let a gator on water. I go in the water and I get a gator.
Drink the blood out. Drink the blood from the gator.
I'm telling you right now, there's a big old gator and a small gator. When you go out and go to the gator on the water, I'm on the water about 14 hours a day.
Yeah.
A
goth New Orleans vampire, I really I want to see that in action.
Well, yeah, I mean, everything I know about the Cajun accent is from the character of Leatherhead from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So, Frank, that accent was spot on.
So, for me, I loved how the book started. I mean, I just love that whole premise of the guy thinks he's full of crap. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he's gonna go along with it. Whatever, dude. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And it's funny with people listening to it now. Mm-hmm. There's gonna be a point where they're like, tape, record.
Right.
Yeah.
Very, very quaint. Yeah.
Yeah, but I love the way that it started there because I mean that's the whole premise, Interview with a Vampire. But I mean the whole premise of him allowing himself to tell a story, which was pretty crazy.
I like too because there's the implication that it's his perspective of it, so you don't really know everything that's happening. You can kind of tell that like that probably didn't happen that way, and well, this is how he views himself, and it's very clear he has a very different opinion of Lestat than probably how he actually was.
Right. Yeah, so it's really interesting, and even through the whole book, even Lestat and his maker. They leave so much. He leaves so much in this vague area. You're like, okay, yeah, who's telling the truth?
Yeah, and it also doesn't become apparent. It didn't become apparent to me. You're not really rooting for anyone here. It's just a story. Like, because I was like, is he like, he's only eating off rats? Is he a good guy? And he goes into like, I would love to say I did it. I didn't feed off humans because of morality, but I can't really.
Well, that was the whole thing. What I was going to say earlier that what makes this book unique, and I think she did a great job on, is that you have a person that becomes a vampire, becomes this undead creature, which then where's God, where's the devil in there, which they go into. So your morality and all the thing that keeps you as a human being is out the window. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that was really my favorite part about the book was them discussing like all that and like where does a life value, like if we're an immoral too, it's like they're gonna die anyway. Like when the part where they're like where like the vampire is like telling someone like why shouldn't we just eat you, like, and then like the debate from that. Not in the book, not in the movie.
In the book.
Yeah, in the book it was that was really where I got I was like, that's what I'm getting out of this is discussions about that.
And in the interview, Louis, you don't know if it's true or not, and in certain aspects it's not, but how he's kind of still trying to hold on to that shell of a human being to have some kind of morality, not to kill people. When in the end, that's what he is.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's just what it is.
Yeah.
So I like that part of it. I like how she did that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, to sort of set it up, I actually misspoke earlier. I mean, we really don't begin in New Orleans. We begin in, I guess, a sort of unspecified place, although I think it's supposed to be San Francisco.
I think it is San Francisco.
I'm not sure if they actually identify it, but that actually is where Anne Rice was living at the time that she wrote this. So
right. And it's sense. Like kind of like a downtown area.
Right.
So there's a movie theater that they saw.
Right. So yeah. I mean, so yeah, we have Louis, and we have him, being interviewed by this other guy who was only ever referred to in this book, at least, as the boy, which is weird, a little bit. And so he basically goes into his life story, and so Louis basically. He began his life when he was a mortal human living in New Orleans in the, not even in New Orleans, but just in Louisiana in the late 1700s. And he's on a plantation with his family. And, I mean, there's a really kind of brief episode, but that seems very significant, where he has a younger brother who has these like religious visions.
Yes.
But Louis doesn't really believe that he actually has these visions. And he basically tells him that, and then like his brother leaves the room and then basically falls down the stairs and dies. And so Louis basically blames himself for his brother's death.
And she even puts it in there where it's kind of fuzzy whether he had some involvement or not.
Right.
Because everyone thinks that he pushed him down the stairs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he's saying no. But even when he's doing the interview, he's talking to the guy. No, kind of like go over defending himself.
Yeah, just so we're clear.
Right.
Yeah.
So that whole kind of unreliable narrator trope is very present. Yeah.
They did change that for the movie because like this brother dying is what set him down. Mm-hmm. In the movie, his wife died during childbirth.
That's right.
Okay.
Which, given the background, you think like that. You think that's what would have been the original one.
Right.
No, but not if he pushed him. I mean, if he pushed him,
I meant for
his
the author.
guilt. Oh yes. Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So every now and then a movie will be like, I think that fits a little more.
Right. So basically, once his brother dies, and and everybody kind of thinks he's responsible for it, Louis basically becomes completely kind of despondent, and he starts wandering around these dark alleys, and
wanting to be killed.
Basically, with that sort of death wish, right? And so one night he actually is attacked by a vampire. He's drained of his blood almost to the point of death, and then returns to his home, and he's recovering. And while he's recovering, he is visited by the vampire again, and the vampire makes Louis drink of the vampire's blood, and this is interesting just because I mean my main sort of background of vampire lore and stuff is Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel.
I got you.
Right.
I never got that.
And so there's a lot of stuff there about vampires can kill people, or they can turn people into vampires, and basically what is the kind of mechanism for that. But so in order to actually turn somebody into a vampire, it's you don't just bite them, you also bite them and then make them drink of the vampire's blood. So that part at least is consistent with other vampire mythology that I've
in the game Vampire. You like spit in their mouth, kind of, and that's how you turn people into vampires.
Right.
I don't know why they did that.
Mm-hmm. In San Bernardino County. In San Bernardino County, how you become a vampire.
No, finish that.
It differs depending on the county line.
The county, Chino's very conservative.
It's a really weird rule.
It's a weird thing. Just I don't know how they do it.
If you're in Montclair, it's one thing, but if you cross over the border in Claremont, it's
totally different. Totally different.
This did that it's always like, how are they going to adapt to it? It played more it felt more like a comedy moment in the movie where they go like, no, I'm not, we're not allergic to garlic and a stake through the heart. That's all ridiculous. And then you just go like, oh, we do have to sleep in coffins, and there's no explanation given for why that is.
Yeah.
It's just be like, no, of course we can see our reflections. Yeah. Garlic doesn't. The coffin thing is real.
But in the book, it kind of makes sense because they kind of go around the fact that, I mean, who's going to screw the coffin? If you have someone that's supposed to be dead and they locked him in this room, no one's going to open the coffin. So it kind of makes sense to me. It made sense to me in the book. Okay, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. My favorite thing of handling the stake in the heart thing is just, that would kill anyone.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
It's like, would that kill you? It's like, it would kill a bear.
Mm-hmm. Right. And put a stake in there.
Yeah, it would kill a squid, any living creature.
Yeah. I mean, that is one thing. Is that in this mythology, vampires are much more difficult to kill than in other things that I've seen. Yeah,
and it's interesting because I've read a lot of the other books. It's a kind of unique thing that she set up because some of these vampires are loners, and then other ones aren't, and they can actually. Like if they get tired, well, the biggest thing that kills a vampire in her world is living too long.
I really like that.
That's interesting.
Because they can't adapt to the changes.
Right.
And in one of the books, there's a Roman soldier, I think it was, or somebody in the Roman Empire that actually just went to sleep and went in his coffin, blah, 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 and they could hear the things that are going on around them, and the queen and different things like that. So it's really interesting, her view on vampires.
Mm-hmm. The setup. Louis is like taken under the bat wing.
Bat wing
of Lestat. Barely wordplay.
barely.
That's good. That's good.
And I like that there's a lot of ambiguity of like, does Lestat even know anything?
Oh, that was great.
And there's like in the film they argue like kind of like once over it. But it like in the book, it's like this thing that happens over decades of him being like, I won't tell you yet. You haven't earned me to tell you the ways of the vampire. And then him being like, I don't think you actually know.
No.
And he's like, okay.
And it took the little girl to call it out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because Louis kind of idolizes Lestat as much as he hates him. And that's where their relationship is like.
That undertone.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he really loves Louis.
Mm-hmm. So when he's like, oh, I want to kill you, and he's like, do it, and he's like, no, and he's like, just tell me what we are, and he's like, no, and then there's like, there has to be more vampires. He's like, I've never seen any, and like that, that's a lot of the beginning, and you can really see how Louis like can't bring himself to leave.
Yeah,
Lestat needs a companion.
But Lestat's insecurity, it's insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, he creates a vampire out of a child.
Yeah,
to keep Louis, so it's his insecurity and the fact that he killed his master and probably didn't learn anything. So he's just been floating throughout time. But what's interesting is he's not that old of a vampire because his dad was still alive.
Yeah, that's when I really like when they're talking about where their theory on it is like he probably killed his master because he wouldn't be a slave. I mean, basically the way he's treating us.
Yeah.
But then also they're like, He's saying, like, he's kind of like a parent being like, if you think I'm bad, you should have met, like, my master vampire. Like, you have no idea what other vampires are like. And you do kind of, he's like, maybe, and that's why I'm always going up and down on how I feel about it, because they're also killing people every single day. So, but I'm like, that's a good point, Lestat. You did murder, a child and her mother or whatever. But,
you almost remind me of the Emperor from Star Wars.
Right.
Palpatine?
Yeah, talking to Anakin. I know the secret of life.
Yeah, I think that's an appropriate. Oh, also, I'm gonna just address this real quick. The author didn't like that Tom Cruise was going to be cast as the main character, and she took out reports and news things saying like this is awful, and one of her reasons was he was too short, and I think that is one of the most disgusting things you could ever have against someone. Is what do you mean he's too? They don't describe him like, oh, he's too short. You get Tom Cruise, and you're like, no, he's too small. And as a perfectly average height male, I think that's ridiculous.
Well,
okay.
Tom Cruise is sort of famously short.
No,
he's like one of those movie stars that like, he like often has to like stand on boxes and stuff to be with his like female co-stars and stuff. Him and also Stallone, I think, is also
I didn't know Stallone.
I mean, when your first pick for Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, it's it's interesting because I have not seen the movie, and even when I was reading the book, I knew that Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise were in the movie, but I was trying to not picture them because I didn't even know which one of them played which character, and I was just kind of trying to guess because I was like, well, Louis is really the main character, but Lestat is like like showier character.
Yeah.
So like maybe that's who Tom Cruise played or something. But
I pictured Louis looking like Don Quixote kind of guy, you know, like thin bones and like a beard, like a pointed beard, and Lestat looking like that, but like the guy who plays like the villain in like the Naked Gun, the guy who's like, I don't remember, but
Ricardo Montalban.
Yeah, I pictured Lestat like that. More of like a. I can't do what's a New Orleans? New Orleans. You do what I tell you. I'll tell you about the vampires.
That's right. That's right. I do it just like that. Crawdads, and I'll do everything gumbo. I'm gonna make that alligator gumbo.
We won't affect a child.
No,
we won't get a child. Make that child immortal.
That crawdad ain't gonna pinch.
That's right. It's not gonna pinch. I'm gonna bite him and just soak his head out right like that.
So, what is it to be immortal? Let's.
Wow, that's a really deep question.
But what's funny is in this. What is funny in this book?
Bypass it.
Yeah. What's funny about this is, I mean, she kind of answers that. It's like this book had made me change my view on thinking that. When people say, "Oh, would you rather live forever or whatever?" This book totally changed the way I thought of it, because I thought people will say, "Yeah, I want to be immortal and live forever." Do you?
Mm-hmm.
I
mean, think about if you were a vampire in the 20s,
right?
How would you actually adapt to right now? Mm-hmm. And that's the whole point in the book with Lestat and everything.
I can't adapt 5 years ago,
dude. They had nothing, torches and all that stuff, and then all of a sudden now, totally different language, totally different way people do things, totally different way. I mean, and you're stuck when you became a vampire.
This was actually the strongest argument against being a vampire, because usually I'm like, yeah, I would be a vampire.
Yeah.
They'd be like, because they also say, which is interesting, because this is like one of the first big ones, because it's like, oh yeah, he can feed off animals, but it's like surviving. Like, that's bare minimum. And the blood has to be fresh. So, like, the usual answer, like, oh, just drink blood bags. Like, you can't do that.
No.
It needs to be from a beating heart.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, you mean, so I would have to kill someone every day. They're like, yeah, there's no workaround around that. You can drink rats, which you can do in Vampire. Get that game. If you have a PC and you can't play Bloodborne, that's as close as you'll get. You play Bloodborne?
I never have.
You should. It's so when they go into like all the restrictions and how they're like, you're immortal, but most people we kind of have an age limit, which is how long you can handle this. So
gotcha.
People got like a couple in this book where they're like 600 years. You'll probably, I think they say like vampires just decide like I'm done now.
Yeah, like there's a first vampire which you don't know about in this book, but there's a queen and they made the movie too. Yeah, and she's so old, her skin is almost turned to marble. Because she's still alive as a vampire, but she's just like in this hibernated state. So they could just sit there forever. That's kind of a trip.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and the Buffy, the Vampire Slayer. Yeah, there's also characters like that, like the Vampire Master. Yeah, his face is much more sort of like the classic sort of Nosferatu looking thing, and it's because he's like so old that it's just the skin eventually becomes like that.
And it's funny because you look at the inspiration, right? And I always say that inspiration, right? These guys get all sorts of different things. So it's like even Berserk and different animes, Oh, well, he has this big sword. He was the first one. Well, I mean, how do you know? Yeah. I mean, really, because I mean, Shogun warriors had big swords back in the day. I mean, you had all these different animes, and it's okay. You get inspirations, but like that, so many people now are relating to that Nosferatu, from Blade to Buffy, it sounds like, and taking those same kind of ideas and kind of blueprint, which I think is pretty neat.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's what like. There's nothing new under the sun. There's constantly new things happening. Sure. But also, it's like not everything. It's not bad to not be completely original.
No,
but you can also be completely original with a new concept of an old thing.
Yeah,
like adding to it is. People are like, there's no new ideas. There's so many new ideas.
Oh, yeah.
All the time. So many new stories.
Yeah.
And something will add its spin to it. Maybe everything is going to be based on that for the next 50 years until someone's like, well, here's my spin on it. Yeah,
and like with Interview with the Vampire, what's neat about it is that I I've read it a lot of times and read some of the other books and stuff, and there's second time you read it, third time you read it. I mean, it's just I tend to read it and then look for new things, look for different, and there's so many layers I think to this book. Which now that you tell me your past, I didn't even know it.
Oh yeah,
totally makes sense. Totally make that writer just push that. What she was dealing with and her beliefs into this book.
Yeah, when you get into that past, and then when you meet the third main character, which is someone who is a child.
Yeah.
That's
around 5 years old, just like her daughter.
Yeah. So it's like someone who had a child die, create a character of someone of a child that's immortal, but will never age. So that's a very. That's a lot of emotion that's going into that.
Yeah.
And that character is born out of Lestat trying to. Like, every time Louis, like, pushes back against him, they fight, like, every now and then.
Yeah.
They go into the fight sometimes, like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. They mentioned that they move so fast, and every move was fast as lightning. And then, like, Lestat infects a child with it, because he's like, well, if you leave, I'm going to raise this.
Because it was during the plague, and so the little girl was with her mom that was deceased.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, let me just like pick up the plot recap, and then we can bring it up to Claudia. So I mean, once Louis gets turned into the vampire, I mean, as you mentioned, he's very reluctant to actually feed on human beings. Yeah, he's just feeding on rats. He's very kind of ambivalent about being a vampire in general, a lot of the story seems to be him eventually embracing what he is,
and he tells Lestat, like, oh, I want to, like, start on rats, that way I can really appreciate feeding off humans. So, and it's like he's kind of Louis is a weasel of a person, but he's also like, and during the interview he's like, I don't know if that was true or not, to be honest. I don't know if I was scared or if I did have a moral system to it.
Yeah.
But I told him that basically just so Lestat would get off my back about eating rats for a while.
Sure.
Yeah, the only thing I think about this book that would have made it better for me was if I would have had another author kind of write the description of him turning. Because you have those authors that are way too descriptive, but that's what I wanted in this. At that part.
Oh, the physiological.
Oh, yeah, of him changing, and it kind of just like was quick. It wasn't really. They said some things that he enjoyed, some things that he saw different, but man, I would have really liked a just a in depth, man.
Right. Well, the description that I think was very effective was the description of him once he is a vampire feeding on somebody else, and that description of like
the heartbeats.
Yeah,
that was kind of cool.
The stuff with the heartbeats, and it turns out that. Yeah, I think the first human that Louis feeds on is actually a slave on the plantation, and this is like a whole other issue. And I mean, and this is, I mean, it's pretty brief within this book, but it's significant of just sort of the way that slavery is talked about and handled in this book.
Yeah,
and what's interesting is that the slaves are the only people that actually suspect that these guys actually are vampires, and. I guess you can read that different ways. I mean, you can read that as, oh, well, they're still so superstitious because they have these beliefs.
And they kind of touch on that. That's the reason they know is because they're coming over with other religions and stuff like that.
Yeah, but also they actually happen to be right in this case. So in this case, they actually are more perceptive than the white people in this case. So so that's
I did see in the movie, because he feeds off one slave. In the book, it's like, because that's when you're like, oh yeah, he's not like an anti-hero or something. He does well, I'll just eat my slaves, and they're like, that makes sense. We'll just do that for a while. In the movie, when he eats one and the slaves revolt, it's like, I mean, you could have done that the whole. I mean, they're like, okay, now that we know he's a vampire.
No, I don't remember the movie if his dad was there. I don't think so.
No,
because
there's no dad in the movie.
Yeah, because in the book, that's one of the reasons they start suspecting, because they look in the dining room and there's the dad eating, and they're just making noises on their plates they're eating because he's blind.
In the movie, they mention that happened.
That's right, but they didn't have the dad.
They don't show them doing it and like kind of playing around and like someone sees. In the movie, he goes like, and they saw us doing that. And also when he
and that's a pretty big deal in the book because there's a whole latch between Lestat and his dad, and so
that's like,
and when they had to kill the dad.
That's like a big anchor for him.
Yeah,
as like
that's a big anchor for him.
You see him like emotional, like he does have a heart, and stuff, and so yeah, you watch these movies. I don't like movies anymore, man. I really, I know. All the stuff I liked, none of it. Okay,
that's why you got to go into it. I try to go into it like it's going to be nothing like the book.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely nothing.
Really, read the book, watch the movie, and like, well, I know what happened.
Right.
Yeah. And then you could be a little, I know it really happened.
Yeah. And you whisper over to the guy.
Yeah.
The story was like, there's like, okay, so in chapter 2, and the guy, you just do that at the theater.
And then he'll be like, he'll walk out of there going, what?
Yeah, you nudge his arm. Okay, so Lestat had like a dad.
You want me to read?
He was like, just audiobooks and like fast forward at times 3 speed. And
there you
go. That's what I always do at every Marvel movie. I'm like, well, what they're not telling you is like all of this like cool, backstory and stuff.
Yeah,
but
that was supposed to be like a good character.
Yeah.
See, I look at the Marvel world and the Star Wars world from totally different perspective. I look at it as like Star Wars. Everyone says, well, oh my gosh, Disney ruined him. Well, I mean, we're like crazy fans, either the Lucas side or the non-Lucas side.
Right.
In the end, the way I look at it, whether you think it ruined it or not, we've gotten so much content from what George wanted to give us. We would have ended already. And I could stand in front of a Millennium Falcon, life size at Disneyland. How can I go wrong with that?
Yeah, a debate of Lucas versus against Lucas. Back to middle school. Remember that candy?
Yeah.
Lucas candy? It was like a salt.
Lucas candy?
Yeah, it's like a.
Yeah, Lucas.
It was like it was a salt you like put on your palm and you licked it.
It really wasn't.
I've talked about that a lot.
It really wasn't a salt.
If you look at like a West Coast.
No. If you look at,
I always forget you're not from here.
Everyone used to buy it and on the ice cream trucks and all that stuff. So one time I go out there and my kid wants to buy it and I'm like, let me see what this is, right? Because everyone is like on crack with this stuff. And I look at it and it's freaking chicken seasoning. I mean, it's chicken and meat seasoning, dude. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So I just started packing, seasoned salt. Here. No, I'm just kidding. I'll save some money on Lucas.
The trends are ridiculous. I don't know if people are still sneaking Lucas on the side when I'm not looking.
I don't know. Well, then it was hot Cheetos. That was...
Yeah.
Let's get back.
So back to Louisiana.
You think they ate chicken seasoning in Louisiana?
Oh, we had all sorts of seasoning. So we had all sorts of seasoning.
I mean, that's still what they put on Popeye's chicken. Yeah.
Oh, I've been there.
Oh yeah. Okay, so
the Popeye's chicken. Yeah, it's like that was like this giant move to go to the South or something.
Wow, you've actually been there before.
You've been there?
Yeah, I haven't gotten any. I eat on deliveries.
Yeah,
people like it. It looks pretty popular.
Yeah.
They have jars of sorry.
Yeah.
So Louisiana.
Yeah. So eventually the slaves revolt and the plantation is basically burned, and so Louis and Lestat have to retreat to New Orleans, and so basically New Orleans is where we meet this character Claudia, that we've talked about, which I think Claudia is like by far like the most interesting character in this story. So
and Louis and them just really fast. It is like a marriage.
Yeah,
it is
Louisiana,
absolutely,
fast.
Because Louis controls all the money, and Lestat just goes out and spends it.
Now, who would you say Lestat is?
I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Had no regard for money, what he made. He just went out and spent it. Just ran him into a hole.
Brought a child into the situation to trap him.
Lestat be shopping.
I mean, yeah. Trapped him with a child.
He's like, I need the fanciest robes and clothing.
Yeah.
And
so I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying you can decide.
It's like, let's just have a baby. Everything will be better.
Yes.
Yeah, so Louis sees this, poor girl whose mother is dead, and this is I think like a kind of significant turning point because Louis kind of starts to really embrace his vampire heritage and not just embrace it, not just kill a human, but kill a small little girl. But it kind of looks like her life is not going to be so great anyway. So I guess that's how he sort of justifies it to himself. And so he feeds on her, and then he goes back to Lestat and he mentions something about wanting to leave, and so Lestat makes the move of turning this little girl into a vampire, which Louis is completely horrified by. Rightly so. That basically introduces the sort of next chapter of the story where, Louis and Lestat are...
And it's truly horrifying her age.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the movie, she's 12. But you're talking about 5 years old.
5 years old.
They're it's much more of like a... I don't know. They interact like a little bit in the movie. Like I didn't really get any sense of like in the book. They go into their relationship, so it's very weird. And
it is. That's the one part of the book that I think. I guess we would say troubling part of it, because Louis' relationship with.
Yeah, I mean this is They're like, well, mentally she's like 30. I'm like, all right, let's. I've taken a step back from anime, and this is kind of what I was trying to avoid here.
Right. I swear she was 17. She said she was 17.
So I mean, Louis and Lestat. The sort of married couple analogy goes even further because now they have this daughter together supposedly, but the daughter is a 5-year-old vampire, and so she sort of matures eventually and basically gets to the point where she really is not a 5-year-old child anymore.
And she knows that she's not going to grow any older. She knows that, and then she gets pissed that she's in that body. And blames them like, who made me? Which I thought that was a very interesting twist. Now the only weird thing about that part is they kind of brush over the years, which is kind of crazy.
They do.
Which I get. I understand why she did it because it would have been dragged out, but I would have liked a little more. A little more
like historical reference, like maybe we see Andrew Jackson at the Battle of New Orleans or something like that.
Yeah, because they say like, we started the Chicago Fire, so they're doing the time travel shenanigans. Well, we did that. That was us. So, but it was like, it's just that one. Okay. Now, would you rather be stuck as a 5-year-old forever, or be stuck like in puberty forever? Because I can't imagine. Like at least when you're 5, like. You're hormonally, she has no reason, like she had nothing. But like if I was like stuck being like 17, 16, immortally, I don't think that should be the crime.
Well, it depends on what. If you're a vampire, it's totally different.
You're like your beard is always halfway coming in, like you're permanent. Also, don't they mention like you can't even get a haircut?
Oh, I don't remember that.
Was that not?
I don't remember any mention of haircuts, of how hair grows on vampires.
It might have been an interview with a barber.
Oh, you know what?
A different book.
You know what? I went to a barber. That's. Well, the getting in the movie also the way they do it is they're like walking by a house and there's a woman like showering naked, like with the door open.
Yeah.
And she's like, I want to be that. I'm like, I don't believe people did that back then. Like it's a busy street.
Right.
And there's just a woman like bathing. She's like, I want to be her.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that part.
In the book, it's a little more of a build up to that moment.
Yeah, I forgot about that part.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to be.
I think one of the guys even says like that's a little weird, like in the movie when they're like just walking by that woman showering.
Oh,
he's like that's a little gauche.
Gee, that's a pretty gratuitous scene in this movie that we're in.
Yeah.
I would love a movie that was completely serious, but had like just one bit.
Right. Well, okay, so yeah, I mean, Claudia is in the mix now, and eventually she gets to the point where she likes Louis, but she hates Lestat.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Lestat, at least in this book, and I know that there are later books in this series that focus on him more, but in this book, I mean, Lestat is not a likable character at all. I
No.
mean, and I mean, and we are not supposed to like him. I don't think.
Yeah, I think it was designed that way.
Yeah.
Oh, I just realized this about the parenting thing because this comes up where she's like, "Who made me a vampire?"
Right,
And
right.
Louis like, "Well, I bit and killed you, but
Right.
he." So it's like, "Well, he fertile." So
Right.
yeah, I did like one half and he did the other.
I drained you to die,
yeah.
Right.
and then Lestat brought
Yeah,
you back just
so
to...
yeah, so he's like, "Look, I was gonna kill you. He's the one that."
Right.
So it's like, oh yeah, the one she likes the most. Like, well, yeah, I'm the one that killed you.
Yeah.
Right.
And even when she wanted her own coffin, the writing in that, how Louis was just devastated.
Yeah.
I was like,
Feelings were hurt.
oh my gosh, that's too much, dude. That's
Yeah.
I mean, dude, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. So yeah, so I mean, basically, Claudia concocts a scheme to kill Lestat, and she does, and she basically does it, and like Louis just kind of sits there and watches.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and it's just like, oh wow,
Yeah.
you're actually doing it.
Yeah.
Cause she's like, let's do it together. Like, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I
Lestat's
don't know,
pretty
yeah.
clever, but I can't do that. She's
Yeah,
like, I'm gonna
yeah.
do it. He's like, I don't think you should do that.
But he never knew what Lestat could do to him. And there were parts in the book, if you remember, where he was
Right.
concerned because he didn't know all the ways that vampires could die.
Sure.
So he thought that Lestat always had this, like, a ball. And he always had something behind his back or up his sleeve.
Which I guess he was
Yeah.
maybe a little right about.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was like a haunting ghost thing.
Yeah.
I like what happened with Lestat. I thought it was a little like I was like, oh, like does he actually see him, or is it like he's just freaking out, or like
Yeah.
because that was his master vampire? There's like some psychic thing going on.
And what would be amazing is us as mortals in that room watching that happen. They move so fast it would look like nothing's happening. So all of a
Right.
sudden fire would
Yeah.
start up and you're like, what?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be cool.
I always, yeah, it'd be like Looney Tunes where you would just see like a cloud of dust and like
Yeah.
one guy would be on the ground.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, we killed our master vampire.
Yeah.
Right.
Um,
So yeah, I mean, they they kill Lestat and they dump him in like a swamp, and he's seemingly dead, and so Louis and Claudia decide to go to Europe, and
look for more vampires.
right, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right, yeah, because basically, yeah, at this point, yeah, the sort of overall vampire lore is very kind of threadbare, and it's like, I mean, there's just us. Yeah, are there other people like us? We don't really even know much about what we really are. So yeah, they decide to go to Europe to find that out. And as they're leaving, Lestat returns. Seemingly from the dead, but they very narrowly escape him, and so the next kind of major part of the story is that, when they travel to Eastern Europe, they don't really sort of specify where exactly in Eastern Europe they
No.
are. I mean, I assume Romania, Hungary,
Yeah.
the classic areas where Dracula and stuff took place, and it seems like this part of the book is sort of Anne Rice kind of just making a nod to, yes, I know where vampire
Yeah.
mythology
Oh,
comes
exactly.
from, so we have to address
Yes.
this, but it turns out that vampires in Eastern Europe are very kind of boring and just like
Yeah.
these like lifeless zombies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Yeah, I mean it's almost like she's kind of like subverting it. She's like, oh yeah, Dracula is like this sexy character, but actually
Not.
no, there's nothing going on there.
They're
So,
like,
yeah.
like, Lestat must have lied to us, and like all we found are like basically zombie vampires.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Maybe we are all that there is, because like, well, yeah, I don't know how to make more.
Right,
I think
right.
I think only he could do that.
I don't know. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that whole kind of smash on the Europe thing.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, definitely.
I was digging that.
Yeah. So then this leads to kind of the last major part of the story, which is they decide to go to Paris because they're from Louisiana, so France is their roots, and so
And in the book, he even mentions the fact that he has a a French accent.
That's
in the
right.
very beginning when he's interviewing him. Because I can barely tell you have a French accent.
Yeah. So they decide to go back to the homeland, the motherland, and so when they get to Paris, they meet some other vampires who actually are interesting characters.
The mirror vampire, the guy doing the Marx Brothers bit.
Right.
And he
Yeah.
that because I'm like, oh, what are other vampires just like more of like conceptual monsters of like, oh, this is just a monster that's gonna mimic what you do, and I guess he was just being a jerk.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they have Marceau vampires, but you never hear them coming.
Nice one. So there's the trickster vampire who Louis just sort of hears behind him perfectly mimicking his footfalls and then perfectly mimicking his movements and what he's saying and everything. Yeah, that character's name is Santiago, I believe.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other major character is Armand, who is sort of like the sort of leader of this Paris conclave of vampires, and he turns out to be a vampire who is like 400 years old or something. Yeah, and
interesting bit about the movie changed. They aged that character up because they said because they aged the girl up, and like because Louis and Armand kind of have a thing going.
Yes,
and they describe him as looking like 17. Like very young, and the filmmakers like we felt uncomfortable having like both of his like pseudo love interests being like underage.
Right.
So we made him like an adult.
Yes.
In the movie.
Yes. And then brought in a heavy hitter. You know, who was the actor? He's the guy with Meg Ryan. He was married to Meg Ryan.
Dennis Quaid?
No, not Dennis Quaid. That was I don't know where that. No, it was it Meg Ryan? Yeah. It's the guy that played in the Disney movies with the spies, the kid spies.
Spy Kids?
Oh, Spy Kids?
Yeah. What's that main guy's name?
Antonio Banderas?
Yes.
Okay. That's
that was that
who
guy?
plays
Yes.
Armand? Okay.
Oh, I didn't.
Armand is on Antonio Banderas.
I did not notice that at all.
It was weird, the whole Spanish accent.
I love how
France.
close you get to describing something, by the way.
Oh, dude,
it's
I'm so
always
horrible.
just
I am
so
so
fascinating.
He is married to Melanie Griffith.
That's it.
Not Meg Ryan.
Same thing.
Okay.
Same
It's a
thing.
long road there.
Yeah.
Okay, we got there.
The kids that are spies.
Yeah,
Spy
dude.
Kids.
I'm horrible when it comes to that. I'm horrible when it comes to that. And then it'll be so easy. You mean Rock Johnson? See, I didn't even say that right.
Yeah, no. It's
Wayne, whatever.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
There you go. There you go. But that was I like that part because I mean in the beginning you're going, okay, where's this going? I mean there's so I mean we're talking about years in advance, and what's cool is that she never goes into the environment too much around them changing.
Right.
I thought that was kind of cool because I think she would have lost us if she would have been talking about, you know, all these new things, electric lights, and this is happening, that's happening, this is happening.
Every time there's a
Right.
new
Yeah,
scene, it's
every
like
time,
they have electric lights
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
What
yeah.
marvels and
I
think
like that.
Louis kind of has like a he's like passively like aware of like times changing, but it just doesn't really affect him that much.
Yeah, like in the interview he's talking about
Yeah.
it. He goes, "Oh, you guys say this."
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, or you guys do this.
And it's also like, he's immortal. He also moves around a lot, so like so many
Yeah.
things change that like it doesn't. He's just like over it, or you know. If I go to another, I mean that's the thing. Anywhere you go to another state, almost everything will be different.
But I like
Not
how
almost
they-
everything,
but-
like two things.
But that's what they did in the movie that I liked. And I don't really think they did in the book. But in the movie, when he comes to do the interview, right, there's cars and everything like that. You can hear a helicopter and all that stuff. I think that was done on purpose. And then when he goes to see Lestat, he goes to this old house, and Lestat is all eating cats and stuff, and he just can't handle it. And this helicopter goes by, and he's just freaking out.
Yeah.
And it was really cool because he's not that much older than Louis.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, by about 60 years, maybe.
That's
Sure,
because Louis he never stopped being like part of the world.
Right.
So like he is like, oh, helicopters are a thing now.
Right.
Okay,
Right, right.
I'm capable of understanding what a helicopter is. But if you like shut yourself off for like 5 years, You'd be like, it's like, like if you go to prison and you leave and you're like, oh my god, everything is different now.
Oh yeah.
So like for him, it's like, they improve. We have fluorescent light bulbs now. That's neat.
Yeah.
But if you shut yourself away when you're immortal.
It's like a TikTok one that I saw where a guy paid these 3 kids $100 to make a phone call on a rotary phone. Hilarious. Telling you, it's the funniest thing you'll see. Because think about it, no one knows what a rotary phone is.
Yeah, I've seen that. Like, I don't get you have to put your finger in the thing and you rotate it and then you have to
and then you let it go. You rotate it and then let it go. And then you do the next number.
That's like for a vampire thing, if we would totally just be like, we have smartphones, I'd be like, I don't know what those are, man.
Yeah.
I would be like, okay, I figured out flip phones. Until you guys come up with something that's wildly different, I'll stick with this because I could fall asleep and now like we're all telepathic.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're looking for high vampire society and they find one.
Yeah, they do.
But it's not all it's cracked up to be.
No, it's definitely not.
It is not.
Oh.
Well, yeah. I mean, like one of the more interesting scenes in this part was where they go to the theater and
yes.
Yeah, and I guess the idea there is basically there's this play that is being put on of people being attacked by vampires. But, but the vampires in the audience know what's going on, but the regular people are just like, it's this play, but it actually is people getting killed by vampires on stage. Yeah, there's like, and so
it's like the Club and Blade. It was I felt that was influenced by that.
That's interesting.
I like how the like Lily and Claudia are sort of they're sort of like in the movie they're just like shaking their heads.
Yeah.
And like when in the movie when the play's over, the audience is like, what was that? Like they weren't even like they didn't look like horrified. It was like that was weird.
Right.
And then that's just like these vampires are just like another great show, guys.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah.
Isn't it funny how we toy with these mortals?
Just they never get tired of this bit they've been doing.
I know for hundreds of years.
They're just like, this is a weekly show they do.
Right.
But it's not hard to believe though. I mean that's the whole thing about
because they're
how
like
she
in a club.
encapsulated this immortality because that's your food, and it's like us with dogs. Yeah, that's not our food, but think about how you treat a dog. Well, that's, now if you live forever, I mean, that's...
It's like when you're pretending to throw the ball.
Yeah. It's like, whatever.
Yeah, they don't believe us.
Yeah. No big deal.
Right.
But they're good.
Yeah. And they, a thing with Louis has been like, he doesn't like the idea of playing with your food.
Yes.
That's where his moral thing at least exists at all is like, if you're going to just kill them. Just feed off them and be done with it. But like, there's
don't like toy with them. Don't be sadistic. Just it's just a purely business-like transaction. You need to just survive. Yeah.
I'm gonna eat 3, 1.
Oh my god.
2, 3.
You did it. Did.
I had to.
That's the next vampire reboot. Yeah. The Count.
The Count. That'd be great.
The dark. Look at the Count. Yeah.
I really like that scene with the theater where they're like when they are toying with the human. Yeah. And they're sort of just like, why shouldn't we feed off you? Should we feed off someone else? Why don't you tell us to? Like what? And they're like it is like they are like sadistic about this. Yeah. And they they get into like they're like. Is it better if we kill someone else instead of you? Then that's on you. So do you value your life more? But the movie doesn't do that.
Right. But I mean, it's again one of those things that she encapsulates in the fact that imagine if you ate a steak every day, right? And then now we're talking about 500 years.
Right.
Really? So I'm going to start making it more, engaging.
Right.
Because I've been doing it for 800 years.
Yeah. Well, and this was another interesting thing to me, again, to compare it to, Buffy, the vampire slayer, where in that lore, once you become a vampire, it's like you retain the memories and basic personality you had as a human, but you're basically a demon now. It's like you're basically a different creature than you were as a human. Whereas in this mythology, it's much more sort of, ambiguous. It's like, well, no, you're still basically the same person you were. Right. You're just not now a vampire, and you have the same personality. And so, what was interesting to me was, it's like becoming a vampire doesn't automatically make you evil now.
Right.
It's just you need to feed in this different way. And so, some vampires are okay with doing that. Some vampires are not. And so it's a real kind of struggle that you have to sort of deal with.
Which I think she did great with the character.
Yeah, absolutely. And because Louis is originally like, I'll just live off animals. It's not like it's not great, but at least it's not people. Yeah. But it's like, okay, you're gonna feel that way in 300 years. We'll see.
And he was almost, and even in the interview and different things, he was almost like regretting the whole thing. Mm-hmm. He was constantly like, man, really? This is who I am. This is my life. What am I? Mm-hmm. Which I think was great. I think that was great about the book.
Right.
And, some of they got kind of like a power system. Not quite how Twilight had, like, I can control, like, emotions. But it is like, that guy can also walk up walls.
Yes.
Like, Louis, can you do that? Like, no. But Louis is, like, he's, like, stronger than your average vampire.
Yeah.
So they all kind of get their own little... And it's like, can all vampires, like, do this? Well, there's probably one vampire that can do that thing you're thinking of.
Right.
Yeah.
And not on the X-Men level that Twilight had it.
Right.
Or
yes.
Or it's like, I can control earthquakes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I could
stop not a vampire thing.
I could stop this. I could stop the earth from spinning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more like, that guy can walk up walls. That guy can fly, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, it was good. It was good. Now they just have to make a movie with vampires on term limits. I think that would be great.
Term limits?
Yeah, they only have a certain amount of time to be a vampire.
I always thought to do, like, if you were going to do a thing with immortals, like, you have to, like, validate. You got to get your immortality card, like, validated. Or otherwise they'll be like, you don't get to be immortal. Like, so if you're like, okay, everyone's immortal, what have you done in the past 100 years? You're like, I kind of just hung out. They'd be like, all right, you don't need this. You don't need to be immortal. You got to be like,
wasting your chance.
Yeah. You got to be like, I got an associate. It's like, okay, but that...
Yeah.
100 years, you got one associate. It's like, look,
yeah. We need to live more experience from that. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's like, I took a time off. I'm not allowed to take time off. It's like,
Now,
I've just been doing some self-work, self-care.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got laid off. Like, okay, that's this is strike one. Normally we we're not really that lenient about this because you are immortal.
Right.
And you
well, it depends if you're a vampire and immortal.
Says here you said you were going to finish catching up on that show and you didn't do that. Now I rewatched this other show I've been watching.
Wow.
Yeah. Now I know that we're talking about just one book, but you would like all of them. Mm-hmm. I think I like I said I've listened to a lot of them. Mm-hmm. The only one that I don't like is the whole Lestat coming back as a rock and roll person. They did that in a movie too. That one was a little different, similar to the French thing where people knew that he was a vampire.
Right.
Yeah, so it was really interesting.
Huh.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's where he meets the queen and stuff. So it's pretty interesting. I mean, you still kind of got to read it or listen to it, but this first one just always fascinated me because it, like I said, it just stopped the way I thought of immortality. And I'm like, it would kind of suck.
Yeah. Because normally I'm like, I'd be a vampire.
Yeah, but
and there's a lot of the things too. The whole thing when you can feed off an animal, it's like, well, that's not even. You're not even necessarily even killing more living creatures than normal people do.
Right.
Like,
right.
It's so it's like, so there's like morally now there's even less drawbacks than just being a person. It's like, okay, just get a pig. And like, do you even need to kill it? Like, no, it's actually bad. You actually don't want to drink to completion.
Right.
Okay, yeah. So get like 4 pigs and you're good for eternity, and you never kill anything.
Yeah, but what if you start a pig vampire army?
That would ruin.
Right? Imagine that you just turn pigs into vampires, and you just pretty soon you just have this army of this pig army.
Yeah, it's called Congress.
Exactly. That's what I meant about short-term limits. Term limits.
Hard-hitting political commentary here. Yeah. Those clowns in Washington. Those pigs. Those vampire pigs in Washington.
Those vampire pigs. Just want to suck us dry. But they'll leave us living. Yeah. Just barely.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's called it's called taxes.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So this whole show was basically wrapped around that.
Louis is they getting some hot water with the church because they're like, oh, you killed one of us, you're not allowed, you can't do that.
Oh yeah, the
not the church, the vampire posse.
Yeah. Because they killed his maker.
Yeah.
But Louis didn't get, Lestat didn't get in trouble for it.
That's a good one. I didn't think about that.
There was also that really interesting sequence earlier. It was short where like Louis goes to a Catholic church to like confess. At first he's just like in the pew praying.
Oh yeah.
And then like the priest comes and he asks him if he wants to confess. And I thought that scene was like so cool because it was just like such a quick turnaround, because at first like it's like, oh, there's this like really nice priest and he wants to hear Louis' confession. And then Louis starts confessing, and he tells him that he's a vampire, and then the priest is like, "What are you talking about? This, why are you lying to me? You're just making up all this BS and stuff." And then, like, I don't know, me as the reader, I was like, "Oh, okay, Louis, kill this, kill this, motherfucker now." I mean, hey, this priest is an asshole, yeah. And so I was like completely on his side, and
Wow. And you went after our pig joke? Jeez.
Well, you're like, really? That was a lot of passion.
That was a lot of passion.
Well, no, I mean,
Jeez.
and I don't know what it was, but I'll just give the credit to Anne Rice as a writer. I mean, she's just I mean, she like introduces this character who seems sympathetic, but then turns into an asshole on a dime, and it's like, oh no.
Well, that was the whole. It's weird, and even you telling me about her background, it's just so unique. That the way that, I mean, that's on purpose. She did a lot of those things on purpose.
Right.
Not to make the reader question their own beliefs. That's not it.
Yeah.
It's just, in my opinion, to change the way you think about it. You're talking about beings that have no more morality.
Right.
Doesn't matter about killing, age, doesn't even matter. Gender does not matter.
Right.
And they're in this world that still is slotted on these rails of beliefs,
right?
And throughout the whole book, she's always pushing that little agenda with different things, and I thought it was just brilliant.
Yeah.
Right.
Louis does like eventually be like, you think I'm lying? Yeah. And he's like, I'll eat you now. And the priest, priest immediately believes him now. He's like, you're a demon.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah.
One of the ways I like the whole thing with the cross, the way I like that being handled, John dies at the end. He gives this explanation for that, for like why monsters are afraid of the cross. Human faith legitimately does have a power.
Yes.
And so like it's not that the cross is just like if a Christian holds a cross, like if you're not a Christian and hold a cross, it won't do anything to a vampire.
Right.
Interesting, yeah.
So like it's dependent on
but if you have belief
behind
that.
That's interesting. That actually happens in Marvel Comics as well.
What?
Because Dracula is a character in the Marvel universe, and there's a part where Kitty Pryde from the X-Men, she holds a cross up to Dracula, but it doesn't work because she is Jewish. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
So she pull out. I also saw that in some Spanish comedy film.
Oh,
like the vampire, it says that he's Jewish, so the guy pulls out a swastika.
Oh wow.
The Dracula character itself, they might be introducing in Miss Marvel.
Oh wow.
I'm just kidding.
Oh okay.
I mean, I would literally believe anything related to Marvel
I know.
at this point.
I was like, I think
that is not even the weirdest thing.
I think they brought up her religion comes up in there, and like they're doing Ghost Riders. So
you never know. You never know nowadays.
Because like Blade was introduced in Eternity, so it's like there wasn't even
that's right. Yeah.
What even the connection there was.
Yeah, there's some connection between him and the Black Knight. Yeah, but it's pretty thin. Yeah.
But anyway,
Louis and Claudia get into some hot water.
Yes,
we're nearing the end, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And do they in the book? Does he put up a fight when they get like accosted?
What is the part that you're talking about?
Because they've been like found guilty in the. I just saw the movie, so I think that might be stuck in my head.
Okay.
But like in the movie, they I totally read the book.
Yeah.
To start a book club, but only books that have movies.
Yeah. That part wasn't in the book, so we don't know if he fought back. No, I'm kidding.
I just remember
that car chase didn't exist in the book.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I saw Mission Impossible. That's what happened. No, because they're like, well, you killed like your master vampire,
right. Oh,
and
yeah.
like, they've been sent. Although like Lestat is there, and he's like, no, Louis didn't do anything.
Yeah, right.
He's because Lestat's like on this like revenge quest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and he is like, I killed them all. No, he's like, no, Louis my friend. No, not Louis. And they're like, we'll kill them all.
Mm-hmm. But they blame the little girl in the movie.
Yeah, she gets the full blame. But no, but then they're like, oh, you probably did it too. So we're gonna like put you in a coffin for all of eternity.
Oh, man. Oh,
and
okay.
They don't.
I forgot about that.
It's like, cause there's a pretty cool fight scene at the end, but in the like when he's being dragged, they're telling him, we're gonna put you in a coffin where you're gonna rot for eternity. He doesn't even like try to shake him off. He's just like, no.
And that's a crazy thing because in a lot of the other books, I mean, they won't die. You'll just be in that coffin, living hundreds of years, and you hear everything that's going on.
Yeah.
And that's it's considered a kind of torture.
Right.
It's kind of crazy.
Well, yeah, and towards the end of the book, I mean, there is one other kind of major character, this character Madeline, who appears, and it basically kind of mirrors the earlier scene where Lestat creates Claudia to keep Louis around, and then Claudia basically cajoles Louis into saying, "Hey, I actually got you this, adult woman. Say, hey, doesn't that, turn you on? And
and it's part because Louis is in love with the other guy.
Right.
They have this thing going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the movie. I'm gonna stop saying the movie, but because in the book, like him and Claudia, they start saying like they love each other and all that stuff. Like, okay, sure, parentally. Yeah. And then that scene where it's like she's like presenting this kind of like it felt like a surrogate.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't have to get into this.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Yeah. It was that's what I mean about the book. When people watch the movie, I'm like, the book, there's kind of not uncomfortable aspect of it, but a little bit uncomfortable aspect of it. Because she never downright says, this is what's happening. But it just doesn't feel right.
It's like, look what I got.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the last kind of, the next big thing that happened.
Yeah. But I mean, after that, Louis, like, sets fire to the conclave where all of the Paris vampires are.
A lot of scenes end with Louis setting a building on fire.
Yeah, that does seem to happen a couple of times.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's like...
And what's funny is, I mean, at that time when he's giving the interview, that's why he lit his cigarettes. He liked lighters. He was a pyro.
Ooh, a pyro
vampire.
I can't think of anything.
Well, yeah, and like I guess because fire has much more significance in this sort of mythology because it seems to like literally be like the only way to kill a vampire other than sunlight. Because all of the other stuff doesn't work, and so I guess that's maybe the reason why it's appealed to so often. But
yeah, fire kills pretty much everything.
Right. Yeah.
You play you play Skyrim and like you want to use frost magic. It's like, what does it do? It's like it's worse than fire. And then you like who's vulnerable to fire magic? They're like everything. Literally everything is vulnerable to fire.
Yeah.
Like why would I do anything else?
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. I just made a hand signal. I just want to share with the listeners. The reason why we're laughing so much is because just made a hand signal. That we're gonna kind of wrap things up here. I guess.
Because if not, we'll just keep on going.
We're just gonna keep doing that.
Well, in the end, I would probably of course, if I was going to rate this book, so Interview with the Vampire, I would probably give it 7 out of 10 steaks. Okay,
yeah. I think I would give it 6 out of 10 crosses that would do absolutely nothing to a vampire.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give it 6 out of 10 play Vampire. You guys should check out Vampire. It was a good game.
All right.
Also, I noticed the ending.
Yes.
Where where the interviewer is like, I want to be a vampire. And I liked it. He was like, did you not listen to a word I just said?
No, and that part was crazy because I was like, yeah, didn't he hear everything that went on, dude? Why would you want to be a vampire? But it's the whole power thing. It's the whole nonsense.
Yeah.
And then he left. Dude, how he left him was jacked up. Yeah, take a little bit, but then leave you just guessing.
Yeah, and the ending in the movie where Lestat's like, oh, maybe we're back at it again, boys. I'm like, oh, that Vampire the Masquerade, I guess, referenced that for its ending.
Oh.
Where the cab driver is like Kane. And they're like, oh, yeah. It's a popular thing for Kane to be like the first vampire.
Oh, okay. Oh. Wow.
Because he was cursed with immortality after
I didn't think he would be able to be.
Interesting.
Anyway.
That's good.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening. Definitely watch our other videos, and I think we're out.
Yeah, just real quick, we're on audio now, too, which we're getting kind of decent views. I'm kind of happy with that. I mean, this is an audio thing anyway, but if you're like, I don't want to use up my battery, we're doing audio now. I'm almost caught up uploading all of them. Turns out there's a reason you should start on that. There's just like memory restrictions. Anyway, Duncan.
Listen to your heartbeat. Boom, boom, boom. And it's turning into the music now.
Oh, okay. I can...